I'm not crazy for feeling this way. Like it is genuinely a real thing, that I need more and more money every month. And even though I'm spending the same, and this is why it's because of inflation. It's because we have these governments that are, running the money printer and not really think about the consequences. When it came to talking to my friends specifically, it had to be a very progressive conversation. We had to start from the get-go and be like, guys, what is inflation? What is money? Why is it that we have this piece of paper thing and we can exchange it for value? And why is it that the rate or the amount that piece of paper is worth is deteriorating every year? I talk with my friends, and the whole idea of the American dream of buying a home, buying a car, getting married, having kids, this is something that is so far into the future, purely based on the fact that we cannot afford it. Everyday Bitcoiners, not people that have written books and run podcasts and stuff, just everyday Bitcoiners that I found off X. And the largest ethos that I found amongst them was that after discovering Bitcoin, that freed up more time, that freed up more of their mental space to spend with their family, to go outside, to go to the gym, to eat right, to focus on all these other things that are important in life, because that's something that Bitcoin allows you to do. So I will say my first year of Bitcoin has been absolutely wild, and it's been an experience, but I again am holding that mindset of don't worry about the price, what the numbers say today, because you're not in this for tomorrow, you're in this for 30 years down the line.
All right, welcome to the Bitcoin broadcast. Today we have on Nicki, the host of the Orange Peel Pod. Absolutely crushing it over there. She's you've had some amazing guests. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Do you mind telling just a little bit about your history, how you found Bitcoin? I know your dad, I interviewed him. He was one of my first guests. And do you mind kind of telling me how you came about Bitcoin? Was it through him, and then how you got orange pilled yourself?
Yeah, so for me, I think it came very much in phases. So I first heard about Bitcoin back in 2017 when it was all over the news, and my parents were talking about it. They were like, oh, this person we know just got really rich off of this thing called Bitcoin. But at the time I was 11 years old, so obviously I didn't really care too much about it. So then I re-encountered it in 2022 when I was in my junior year of high school, and I was writing this paper on the global financial crisis of 2008. And I was doing a bunch of research into all of the subprime mortgages, and I was writing on what happened with Lehman Brothers and just overall how that affected, the macroeconomy. And I came across, the Bitcoin white paper at the time, and I was like, oh, it's really interesting that this kind of was released around the same time as that financial crisis. I wonder if there's a correlation here. So I switched the topic of my paper to examining how the global financial crisis created the perfect environment for the emergence of Bitcoin. And that's when I examined it from a very technical point of view. So I was looking at, blockchain and the decentralization aspect, and then comparing that to obviously banks, and going into a little bit about how, you've got code versus humans and the psychology behind that. But it's safe to say I didn't really care much about, the macro implications of Bitcoin. I didn't really care that it was a sound money or that it combated inflation. I didn't look into that. So then I rediscovered it, I want to say in 2024, I think you had my dad on. I think he was talking about how he really, really got into it after he saw President Trump at the conference in Nashville speaking on it. And it's the same thing, between him and my mom. They saw that and they were like, okay, if a presidential candidate is talking about this thing, there's got to be something here that, they weren't seeing. So that's when they did a bunch of research, and then they tried to get me and my brother into it after they, spent the time reading all the books and watching the podcasts. But again, I didn't really care. And, this is 2024, so this was my first year in college, and I had moved to Australia and was kind of like experiencing, the rising cost of living. My rent was going up, my grocery bills were going up, and I felt like every month I was like, shoot, man, like I need a little bit more money than I needed last month. Like, where is all of this going? So, that was already kind of in my mind. And then in January of this year, my dad sat my brother and I down to watch What's the Problem by Joe Bryan. And I think that video was the moment that I kind of connected the dots in my head, and I was like, okay, so the things I'm feeling, like I'm not crazy for feeling this way. Like it is genuinely a real thing, that I need more and more money every month, and even though I'm spending the same. And this is why it's because of inflation. It's because we have these governments that are, running the money printer and not really think about the consequences that has on normal people like, you and I. So that one, it's a really great video, because it talks about kind of the fiat money versus sound money. And you talk about fiatellos and satoshis, but you don't really talk about Bitcoin like right off the get-go. It's like in the video towards the end for like just a few minutes. It's just mentioned there. And I think that part was really, really important, because I was like, okay, so I know we need a sound money. What is this Bitcoin thing? Then I did my research. I read the Bitcoin Standard, Broken Money, Price of Tomorrow, all these things. And I was like, shoot, like my parents were right. Okay, like they genuinely, were thinking in the future. And it's a good thing that I caught on. So then in August, I started the podcast, and I've just been kind of talking to people and doing my research, and then just recording what that looks like, as someone in college, doing all these things, asking all these questions, because I do believe that, Gen Z has a very different situation to most people that are currently Bitcoiners. We, for starters, have no money. So there's no way for us to go and just be like, okay, we need to buy Bitcoin, because where are we pulling the money from? So, it's looking at all these things like, how can I budget out a DCA for myself? How can I make sure that even if I can't do a DCA, how can I save up $50 at the end of each month to just put into Bitcoin? What if instead of a savings account in a bank, I use Bitcoin as my savings account? And things like these. So that's kind of the stuff I talk about on my podcast, because that's, I think the things that need to resonate with Gen Z the most. But yeah, I know I kind of went off on like a tangent there, but I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. I mean, because being Gen Z, I can't imagine growing up right now. And first of all, like the workforce, you have AI that everyone's talking about, gonna steal all your jobs. And it's like, okay, so then why do you go to college if they're just gonna take that job? And then it's like housing, like, yeah, that sounds cool. I'd love to own a house one day. Oh, I can't afford a house. Okay, cool. And then you're like, a savings account. Oh, once you realize that they give you 0.01%, per year on, I was I was at the bank the other day with my wife, and they pulled up our bank account, and I think we earned like 30 cents in the past year in our savings account. And I'm like, this is so ridiculous. Why would anyone keep money in this? And so poor Gen Z, you guys are like all coming out of high school and college right now. And I don't know how you guys are navigating this. Do you talk about Bitcoin with your friends and with people your age? Or is that like completely off their radar and everyone is just like, I can't afford anything, so why bother saving? What's the sentiment like?
This is a good question, because I think last year the general consensus was we didn't talk about money or anything to do with the economy or investing amongst my friends, at all. Like that was just something that we didn't even touch. And then this year, after I started the podcast, I kind of started opening up those conversations and being like, okay, like guys, for starters, do we know what inflation is? Because, it might sound like really, really like ridiculous, but it's genuinely a real thing. Like those memes don't come out of nowhere. We are not taught what inflation is in school unless you specifically go out to take an economics class. You aren't going to learn it. So then we have these conversations, and, I started by asking, the paychecks, like, what do you do with them? Do you have a savings account? Because I realized that most of my friends, they have a savings account, but they don't have a savings fund. Or if they do, it's got maybe like 200, 300 Australian dollars in there, which is really, nothing um, for an emergency. So it opened up these conversations, and then from there we went into talking about investing. We talked about, how making it's important to make your money work for you. Comparing the S&P 500 to other stocks, and then looking at index funds and all these things. And then I was like, hey, but what about this thing called Bitcoin? So I do think that when it came to talking to my friends specifically, it had to be a very progressive conversation. We had to start from the get-go and be like, guys, what is inflation? What is money? Why is it that we, have this piece of paper thing and we can exchange it for value? And why is it that, the rate or the amount that piece of paper is worth is deteriorating every year? Inflation, governments, they're printing money. They're not telling you, they're reporting it's 2 to 3%. But if we look at the actual M2 money supply, is it really 2 to 3%?
No.
And then exactly. And these are things that, it's easy for people that have money and are consistently thinking about, how they're going to make more money, how they're going to put food on the table, things like this. These are things that are on their mind, and, it's easy for them to figure it out. But for us, we're not thinking about where our next meal is going to come from. I mean, for the most part, majority of us are still supported by our parents when it comes to, education or living expenses. And, granted, we are very, very lucky and very, very grateful. But as a result, we are not thinking about money. We are not thinking about investing and just growing our wealth altogether. So it really is a progressive conversation, and that now I think I've managed to orange pill one of my friends completely. And I had her on my podcast, and I did that kind of in real time, like asking her questions, kind of opening up that conversation. And then by the end of the podcast, she's like, okay, I opened my Strike account, I set up a DCA. And I was like, this is really, really great. And then I've gotten, some of my other friends kind of curious about Bitcoin, but it's a work in progress. It's not something that can happen overnight. Especially when, you're a college student and you don't have all the time in the world to put into reading the books. And the only source of Bitcoin knowledge that you're getting is, your friend's podcast that you're watching that comes out, twice a week, and it's like an hour-long video. So you're really only putting 2 hours a week if you're keeping up into learning about Bitcoin. So yeah, I mean, I hope that, kind of put things into perspective.
Yeah, talking with friends about Bitcoin, most of my friends just, I'm just like the psycho. Even I'm 35, and my friends do know about money, and but they all just invest in the S&P and index funds, because that's eventually, once you get a big boy job, you have your 401k, and then you've eventually learned about investing, and so they put money into that, or they're a Roth or something like that. And so most of my friends, that's all they do. And so even my age, it's tough to get around the fact, they still don't know what money is. And, they see the inflation and they're like, man, it's expensive, but like at least we have some sort of money by now. So when you're, 19, 20, I mean, that's wild that people still have to be supported by their parents, and you can't just work a part-time job and be able to support yourself. Because when I was in college, I ran track, I was a full-time student, and then I had a job, and that's how I paid my rent, and then I lived off student loans too. And that was pretty much, what I could do. And I feel like most kids these days, like, you can't even afford rent on a part-time or a full-time job if it's like serving, at a normal small restaurant, working at a grocery store. Like, you have to have multiple roommates. It's a tough situation to be in. And I think a lot of people your age, they see it, but they don't know the answer. And they don't, they can't think of what questions to ask. Why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to my friends? And we can't afford anything. And then, of course, like you said, I mean, your savings account having, $200, $300, and it's tough to rationalize investing in Bitcoin when you don't have money to invest. So my advice for people, at least younger generations, is learn a skill, put yourself out there and try to earn as much income as possible and save what you can in Bitcoin. That's kind of what you said you're trying to do anyway. So I think it's pretty admirable. Um, have you, first of all, I think you're going to orange pill a lot more people than just one friend. I think people are going to see your channel and be like, oh, okay, I get it. So I think you're on a roll there.
I
Um,
really hope so.
how do you see, um, I know you're friends and you've talked about it a little bit. How do you see inflation going moving forward? Because we all know, like you said, the M2 supply, inflation is not 2 to 3%. I mean, how do you see that going moving forward?
I think, I mean, there really only is one way to answer this question, right? Lynn Alden wrote in her book that nothing stops this train because it's not stopping. It's not going to stop, tomorrow. It's not going to stop in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And it really just comes down to, my generation needs to recognize what is going on. We need to see that this is a problem, number one. Number two, realize that this doesn't have to be this way. And, that's not even to say that, we have to switch to Bitcoin altogether, but we just need to see the difference between a fiat currency versus, a sound money. And that could be a sound money of your choosing. Bitcoin is the best option that we have right now. And then, converting your mindset and being like, okay, I know that inflation is happening, but we have this form of money that is by design deflationary and supports all of the technological innovation that is going to be coming in the next 20 years with, the introduction of AI and the humanoids all together. How is it that we as, 19, 20-year-olds can adapt ourselves and learn the skills that are required in order to succeed in an economy that is backed purely by the value that you are able to create and add to the economy?
Yeah. No, that's phenomenal. I agree. Um, I did want to ask you because I think I brought up housing, but housing and rent is like ridiculous right now. How is Gen Z navigating this? I know you said you have parents that help out a little bit, but how is Gen Z even navigating rent, or is buying a home even on the spectrum for you guys?
So I think in short, we're not navigating this at all. We're kind of just drowning, like swimming against the current, kind of. And no, I mean, none of us are thinking about buying a home because it's so financially impossible for a lot of us to even think about at this age, right? Like, I talk with my friends, and the whole idea of the American dream of buying a home, buying a car, getting married, having kids, this is something that is so far into the future purely based on the fact that we cannot afford it. It doesn't matter if you want it or you don't want it. The matter of fact is you can't afford it. So, to put things into perspective, I live in Melbourne, Australia, and that is one of the worst housing markets in the world. Australia already has a very bad housing crisis. Sydney is the most unaffordable place in the world in terms of rent and cost of living. But, Melbourne is really bad as well. So I live in a student accommodation, and my rent has increased 3 times in 2 years. That is not normal. And each time it increases by about 30 Australian dollars as well, which is a substantial amount. In Australia, we pay rent by the week as well. So that's 120 extra dollars going into rent every month. That
Wow.
is not normal. That is not something that should be happening at all. And then they can try to justify it by saying, oh, we need to keep up with rising costs and we're providing more amenities. But the fact of the matter is the money printer in Australia and in the US and the rest of the world is going off. And they need to cover. Like, they need to cover themselves and ensure that they remain in profit. So really, you can't blame them because this is a broken system. It's just capitalism being capitalism and everyone doing what they need to do to survive. So to put, honestly, to answer your question, we are just absolutely drowning. I mean, I myself, along with a lot of my friends, we have just adopted this mindset of financial nihilism that's really, really hard to come out of. I mean, it
Yeah.
goes beyond just, being able to afford a house. It goes to, you're young. You are living in a foreign country, you want to travel, you want to experience life. You can't do that because it's so expensive. It's the same, flying from Melbourne to Sydney is almost comparable in terms of, hotel costs, flight costs, expenses while you're there, eating, drinking, going out. It's almost comparable to flying from Melbourne to Bali.
Wow.
It's yeah, so it's pretty insane, the world we're growing up in, and it's not allowing Gen Z to, live out any of their dreams and the things that they wanted to do or own the things that they wanted to own, which is it's the entire reason why we're all kind of so nihilistic about everything, and we're kind of like, okay, there's absolutely nothing we can do, so why even worth trying?
It's really sad. I mean, on X, you see Elon Musk post all the time about fertility rates plummeting, and I'm not just talking about the medicine or the physical stuff behind that. I mean, I think it's also a mentality, and that's what you kind of said. You can't afford to have kids, which is like that's crazy that people literally have to put their life on pause, not because of a decision they made, like a bad financial decision or like anything crazy. They're just like, I physically don't want to bring a child into the world right now because I can't even take care of myself, let alone a baby. And so it's like that's such a burden on people, and it sucks that you guys are going through this because I thought it was bad for us, and then you guys are now going through it and it's way worse. My wife and I got incredibly lucky and we bought a house in 2018. That same house that we bought in 2018, we sold 5 years later for $200,000 more than what we paid. And when we sold that house, we knew we would never be able to buy that house again. Like if we wanted to move back to Colorado, we're like, we can't even afford the house that we just sold because the price has gone up so much and the rates, and it's absolutely insane. Um, how is the price of college affecting you guys? The price of education, are you guys thinking like we should do trade school or I need to do an entrepreneurial thing? Are people starting to question whether going to higher education is even worth it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm starting to question it, myself. I'm 2 years into my degree. I only have 1 year left, and I feel like every day I'm kind of like, what's even the point? Like, why not just drop out? But then it's like, okay, I've already paid so much money, and I've already done 2/3 of it. So it's only 1 year left to go, so we might as well get the degree now. But I have a younger brother. He's 16. He's going into his senior year in September of 2026. So I tell him, I'm like, are you sure you want to go to college? Like, this is something that I want you to really, really sit down and think about because number one, it's going to cost a lot. And, my brother and I are very lucky in that we are supported by our parents throughout this. And, our parents have said, like, if higher education is what you want to do, we will support you. You don't need to worry. So, I recognize that we are in a very, very different spot than a lot of, American Gen Z. But I had this conversation with him and I'm like, really, really think about it because it's going to cost a lot and it's going to take time away from you. That's dedicating 3 or 4 years of your life, of your young life. These are your formative years. If you have time to put your 100% into anything, now is that time because you have so few responsibilities. You'll be giving that up in order to go to, a higher education. And if that's not something that you want, then what's the point? I have a friend who was studying in Arizona, and she realized after her first year of college that she wasn't really like into this at all, and it wasn't what she wanted to do. She dropped out, and now she's going to cosmetology school, and she is doing a million times better than she was when she was in college, just in terms of how happy she is, how optimistic she feels about her future, and how many opportunities have opened up for her to do what she actually wanted to do. And that part is really, really important as we're headed into this economy that is going to be driven entirely by, Bitcoin and AI. That's my personal belief. And, the measure of success is going to be how much value you can create and add to the world. Is it even worth it going to a college, getting your degree, and then trying to find a 9 to 5 job working, as I don't want to use the word slave, but a corporate servant for somebody else who's just going to get richer and richer and richer? So I do think that we are going to see a larger percentage of high schoolers graduating and then going to college or going to trade school and going into entrepreneurial routes because that's genuinely the way that the world is headed.
I think it's the smart choice. My wife and I talk about that. We don't have any kids yet. And I was like, I don't know by the time, 18 years from now, if we had a kid like right now, I'm like, I don't know if college, it would even be worth it at all in 18 years. I mean, the price it seems like it's almost doubling every 5 years or something. So I'm like, well, who knows what it's going to be, like $1 million for, a 4-year degree? Like, no, that's not worth it. What are you getting a degree in, if you don't mind me asking?
Computer science.
Oh, there you go. At least you're getting something like that. I think you can use pretty well outside of, you outside of like a regular job where you can apply those skills to your own thing. And I think what, people like you, starting your own channel, putting yourself out there, I think a lot of people are going to go that route because, like you said, you don't want to be the corporate servant. And the time to do it is now, because yeah, responsibilities are incredibly low, and you you have the time and the resources. It's kind of weird because we live in a time where people are really struggling, but we also live in a time where it's the easiest ever to make money. Um, I don't want to say like with a low amount of effort, but does that make sense? Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, no, I do, because it's because of the internet, right? And not only the
yeah.
internet, but because of social media. It is so easy to just film yourself speaking or, do anything and just post it on social media and try and monetize that. We've never had such an opportunity to ever before in like the entire history of the human race. So I do see what you're saying. It's sort of like we've entered a time where the most important thing that you can do for your future career is creating a personal brand for yourself and putting yourself out on the internet and sort of, building your persona and being like, yes, I'm a person, I exist, these are my skills, this is what I do. Yeah, so I mean, this is something that my dad talks about like a lot, and he loves to say that now is the most like now you have the most free time that you're ever going to have in like the rest of your life. So what are you doing to maximize that opportunity? And he's been saying this basically my entire life. And that's it kind of hit me in August of this year, and I was like, I'm learning about Bitcoin. I'm questioning whether I want to go into software engineering or data science, after I graduate. I'm seeing AI coming in and replacing all of these jobs. I mean, I have conversations with my friends and my professors in college, and we're kind of like, shoot, like none of us are going to have any jobs when we graduate in December of next year. Like all of the major tech companies are going through major layoffs, or they're going through, AI. They're starting to hire like AI agents to do the jobs that they had entry level software engineers for, which is insane to think about, but also, it makes sense. We do live in a capitalist society. Companies are going to do whatever they can in order to increase their efficiency and, maximize their profit, obviously. So that kind of hit me in August, and I was like, you know what? This is what I'm doing. I'm already putting in the work to read the books and watch the videos. Why not just start making my own? And that way I get to talk to people and I get to showcase, my skills and learn and, see what I'm good at and see what I'm not. So, yeah, I mean, it's the same thing I kind of tell any one of my friends who's like, whenever we have conversations about this topic, I'm kind of like, just put yourself out on the internet. Just post yourself doing the things that you like. And you never know that, that might be something that you can do for the rest of your life in order to make money. Like you might never, ever have to worry about a 9 to 5 corporate job because you can just make money doing your passion and doing what you like. So I guess, even though it seems really dreary, even though it seems really nihilistic, the economy that we're headed into, the world that we're heading into, because we have the opportunity to, monetize our passions. It's kind of cool. I mean, it's kind of something that, it's never been as easy to do this as it is now, which is really a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I agree. I wish I started, years ago. I think the biggest hurdle people have to get over is their fear of what other people think of them. I know it's a really big fear. That's like the number one fear, right? Is public speaking. It's even a bigger fear than death, I think, because no one wants to get publicly shamed. And I think that's also why so many people start social media and very quickly 3 4 5 6 months they stop because a they either don't get the response they wanted, or b they look at the bad comments, and no one likes to feel like that, if it's negativity. And unfortunately there's a lot of people out there that are very negative. So I agree with you, though. I think everyone should build their own persona. No one really needs a resume anymore. Do you know what I mean? I don't even have it like a LinkedIn. Like, who uses LinkedIn anymore? Besides my wife, she uses it. And I'm like, I don't have a LinkedIn because we don't need it anymore. Like, you can literally put your resume out there and you can monetize it based on your own knowledge and your own skills. And I think a lot of people should take advantage of that. But you did mention AI a couple times. What are your thoughts on AI moving forward? And are you worried about? I'm a little worried, but I'm not that worried about AI taking over like podcasting or YouTube. I know it's going to be a big portion of it, but I'm not really that worried. I guess I'm optimistic about it. What are your thoughts on it?
So I'm kind of split in two ways when it comes to AI, because I am, bullish on it in the sense that I do think it's a good thing in order to, increase efficiency, make things, a lot easier and cheaper for a lot of us, and it's going to free up time for humans to do the things that they want instead of the mundane tasks that they need to do to make money, which goes back to that monetizing your passions point from earlier. But I am worried about AI in the sense that this is really a double-edged sword, because there is a lot of harmful stuff that people can do with AI, and we're starting to see this on the internet with, deep fakes. I think in like 2023, there was a whole thing about like these really vulgar images of Taylor Swift were created using an AI and then posted on X. And, that was a whole thing, and that really put into perspective like this if this as a tool might be, good, but if it falls into the wrong hands, then it can be really, really detrimental to people's lives. So that part gets me worried quite often. And I think that we would need, some regulations on it, but then there's this whole debate of like, if we start to regulate what people can and can't do with AI, then isn't that censorship? As Bitcoiners, we're very anti-censorship. We're very, you should be able to say what you want to say, do what you want to do. That's nobody's business, which I agree with, but it's a double-edged sword. So I think when it comes to, Gen Z building their careers and Gen Z trying to do the things that they want to do entrepreneurially, I think what we're going to see in the next 20 years is a lot of businesses, a lot of small businesses, popping up everywhere that are going to have maybe like 4 to 5 employees and be entirely AI focused. And that's not to say they're going to be along the lines of OpenAI or, I forget what Google's AI one is called, but it's not going to be
Gemini?
building AI. Yeah, Gemini. Um, it's not going to be building AI. It's just going to be things that use AI, if that makes sense. Like you might have someone's opening like a financial advice, consulting agency, and it's just using AI. But it could be like a chatbot. It could be like AI agents or something. So that's what I'm envisioning for the future. And when it comes to, content creation and podcasting, I do think that we're going to see AI come and take over a lot of this space. I don't think it's going to take over all of this space. But what I do think is going to happen is, content creators like, myself or you, we might start, using AI in the future if the technology starts to get really, really that good to create the videos. So instead of, filming like you and I sitting here, it could literally just be like the AI versions of ourselves having this conversation. So It's definitely we're headed into a weird time with AI. This is unlike anything we've ever seen before, but it can be used for good, but it can also be used for really, really bad things. So that's kind of why I'm kind of split both ways, and I haven't been able to come to a solid stance on AI quite yet, just because every time I think I've got it, another point pops up, and I'm like, this is something that we didn't think about. What are we going to do if this happens? So yeah.
No, that's a great perspective. The bad things that can come from it, yeah, like you said, we've already seen it. We're gonna continue to see it. It's only gonna get better and better, which means the bad side of it is gonna get worse and worse, and the good side of it is gonna get better and better. Like you said, I mean, I'm sure one day we'll have, just our glasses, and it will be like you're standing in front of me, and we'll just be like talking, and it will be super weird, but uh yeah, we got to use it to our advantage. I think one thing
Yeah.
that you should also look forward to is the human aspect. People crave a human aspect to things. Listening to robots constantly, it's always been humans are, we get so sick of it. Like just talking to an automated thing on the telephone, it's like you want to throw your phone across the room every time. And so I think there's a human aspect that you and I can like bring, and people will appreciate that because every day is different for a person, whereas AI is going to kind of spit out, their calculated thing. I mean, they don't have a soul, they don't have an emotion. They can fake it, but I don't. Maybe that'll be a while before they like can develop feelings. I don't know. That's down the road. But anyway, I'm gonna switch topics just a little bit. I saw you posted some pretty good videos about self custody. Um, I think it's really important. Can you kind of explain why you think self custody is so important?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to talk about this purely as if, for people my age, and that's
Okay.
just because we are already so technologically advanced that there really is no reason for us to put our trust in exchanges and essentially adding a third party into Bitcoin, which was designed to be, just between the sender and the receiver, right? That's my biggest point with why, Gen Z needs to self-custody. It's just because we're already so technologically advanced, and this is not that hard for us to learn, but it's so beneficial. There was an exchange, FTX, right, that just had its whole thing in 2022, and so much Bitcoin was lost, and the people that had their Bitcoin on that exchange were just rewarded in the fiat kind of equivalent for on the day of when that exchange went down. But if that they were rewarded with their Bitcoin instead, look at where they would be now, or look at where they would have been in, let's say, like October of this year as compared to 2022. It really, really is more beneficial to just take custody of your own thing and just take the third party out of it altogether, because, and this might be really, really drastic to say, but I really don't see any difference between holding your Bitcoin on an exchange and then holding, just like your US dollars in like a savings account with a bank. It's
Yeah.
it's not yours either way.
Yeah, and I don't people older than me, say 50 and above, I can understand why it's like pretty tough, to rationalize like why do I have to send, this money, especially if you have like a lot of Bitcoin. It's like, why do I have to send this money off an exchange and it can go to this wallet, and like what if I lose it? It can be very scary, but yeah, your age group I think should crush it. You guys have like been raised with phones in your hands, like I don't know. Um, do you think you guys will adopt to it pretty quickly, pretty easily, quicker than other generations?
Yeah, I think we have the advantage of not really needing to, adapt to it, because we can just get started with it right off the boat, right? When I started with Bitcoin, of course, I had to buy it off an exchange, but immediately set up auto withdrawals to go onto my hardware wallet. And well, at first I started out with a hot wallet actually, and then from there I went to a hardware wallet. So it just that in itself, just the fact that we have the advantage of being able to start and have all these options as to how we can self-custody is a huge, huge thing. And that really leaves no reason for anyone who's Gen Z to be keeping their Bitcoin on an exchange. Like that's not even worth it. And if you're listening to this and that's you, then what are you doing? Like get on self-custody, right? That's kind of one of the first 10 things you learn about Bitcoin is not your keys, not your coins.
So, all right, I only have like a couple questions left, but uh, this is pretty open ended, and I just wanted to get your view. What are your thoughts of moving forward the future? Are you more optimistic? Are you pessimistic? Or are you kind of right down the middle with AI? Like 50-50, positive, negative, and I don't know. I'll let you explain, but yeah, what are your views on the future right now?
I think this is a really, really great question. I think I'm very much down the middle because we are at this point where everything in the world is so divided. Let's look at politics, for example. We have a greater political divide now than we've ever had in at any point in the past. And I know that sounds crazy to say, but if you like looking at facts, you can go look at the facts. If we look at Gen Z, we're either very, very like liberal, like leftist, or we're very, very conservative. You don't have many people that are down the middle or anywhere on that spectrum. It's kind of a very black and white time, a kind of you're either this or you're that. We're obsessed with putting labels on just everything. And I think that is really, really scary to think about. You and I were talking about the shooting that happened on Bondi Beach just earlier. It was sometime last week. And that in itself is so, so scary because you don't hear about many shootings in Australia, right? They have really, really strict gun laws. I mean, you have to have like so many different licenses and so many different reasons as to why you can even own a gun. And, that's not like the US, but still we have a shooting. And, we can go into what that shooting was motivated by, who the victims were, who the perpetrator was. But the fact of the matter is there's so much hate in the world that makes me feel really, really nihilistic. And that kind of, makes you worry about your safety too. As a young girl, I am living in Melbourne, and now I've heard about this shooting that happened in Sydney, and it's like, shoot, if it happened, in this other major Australian city, who's to say that it's not going to happen in mine? Who's to say that, maybe it's not a shooting, maybe it's a stabbing, it's some other sort of hate crime. How do you know that this isn't going to happen to you? And when you're so young, when you're in your 20s and you're trying to, think of the places that you want to live, the places you want to visit, the things you want to do, the things you want to see, the career you want to be in, having to think about your safety as hard as we have to think about it really does limit your options, and it puts a lot of, emphasis on being smart with your choices. So that in itself is terrifying. But on the flip side, there's so much room for opportunity and there's so much room for growth in this time purely because of the technology that we have. With the AI boom, a lot of people think of it as a bubble. I think of it as a boom. With the AI boom, we're going to see so much more room for, again, like people pursuing their passions and monetizing it. And even if you're not monetizing it, if you're someone that really, really likes to paint, but you're stuck in this like 9 to 5 corporate job, some of the tasks that you have to do are going to get automated with AI. That frees up your time to come back and paint and spend on the things that you want to do. This is something that also translates to Bitcoin. When we talk to a lot of Bitcoiners, I started off my first interviews were talking to like everyday Bitcoiners, like not people that have like written books and like run podcasts and stuff, just everyday Bitcoiners that I found off X. And the largest ethos that I found amongst them was that after discovering Bitcoin, that freed up more time, that freed up more of their mental space to spend with their family, to go outside, to go to the gym, to eat right, to focus on all these other things that are important in life, because that's something that Bitcoin allows you to do. It takes care of your financial future so that you can use your time and your energy to focus on the things that matter now. And I think that in itself is so incredible that it, makes me optimistic for our future, no matter how divided, no matter how, dark things might seem right now because of, the political landscape or, anything else that anyone might be going through. So yeah, I mean, to kind of sum things up, I'm very kind of split down the middle, but I still am optimistic because we still have Bitcoin and we still have AI.
I think we should be very optimistic. At least I am. I'm very optimistic right now. I think you know, being so young for you and already realizing, like, seeing all this, like, I don't even know what I was doing when I was 19 years old. So good on you. No, I mean, being in Bitcoin already, and you're only going to see your purchasing power go up, and you're already thinking about your health, your wealth, and the future, and spending the time to learn about these things. I think more people like you should be optimistic about the future because I think it's only going to get better for you. A lot of people that, the pessimism doesn't get you anywhere. They don't seem to succeed very much. They always have bad energy around them, and I don't think that's the way to go. So, I would say, yeah, be optimistic. You've got a bright future. But I like to close out on my podcast with asking just a couple questions about, what are your thoughts around the price action right now, for instance? All of 2025. Give me your recap. Give me your thoughts on it right now.
Okay. So I'm
Sorry
not
to put you on
someone
the
that
spot.
That's all right. So I'm not someone that follows the price of Bitcoin super closely, just because
Okay.
I think that at my age this would be more harmful than beneficial. Just because, I do believe for Gen Z, Bitcoin is a very long-term thing. It's not something that we should be using to, get rich quick. But I will say everything that happened in kind of late October, early November genuinely did, kind of do my head in a little bit. And I was getting a lot of like DMs and texts from my friends being like, hey, so I put money into Bitcoin because, you said it was a good idea, but what's going on now? And I'm like, two things there. Number one, never put money into Bitcoin because somebody told you to. Number two, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. So then I did the research and I was like, okay, so we had the ETF dumpings. So we had, everything that was going on with the tariffs, the trade and the tariff war between the US and China, and just how Bitcoin is a reflection of the larger macro economy. And it's going to be volatile because the economy is always changing and governments are always doing things. I looked at how the money printer was running in November and, it was going off. When the money printer goes off, things are going to change. So, yeah, I mean, it definitely was a weird time to get into Bitcoin because, again, I've only really started getting into this year. So I will say my first year of Bitcoin has been absolutely wild, and it's been an experience. But I again am holding that mindset of don't worry about the price, what the numbers say today, because you're not in this for tomorrow. You're in this for 30 years down the line.
The less you look at price, the better. And the more, the longer you're in it, the more comfortable you get with it. It's, everyone kind of says, I don't know if everyone, but like, you have to do like your duty, your tour of service, which is like, your 4 years. You got to spend 4 years in Bitcoin to understand, the price action and see how it goes. Unless cycles break, then we're all screwed. So then no one knows what's going to happen. And I think cycles might be over anyway. Um, but no, Nikki, this has been fantastic. I got to ask you, how was Bitcoin Mena? How do you say
Yeah,
it?
Bitcoin Mina, yeah, in
Mena.
Abu Dhabi. It was awesome. It was my first Bitcoin conference. So
Nice.
I was just like super psyched, super excited about the whole thing. I will say it was not what I expected, just because I thought, I was gonna go in there. I was like, I'm gonna attend every single one of the sessions. Like, I'm gonna learn a bunch of things. I'm gonna talk to these people about this topic. Like, I had everything planned out. And then I got there and I was like, huh, interesting. You kind of get caught up talking to somebody who you never thought you'd talk to, and they have this insane story. Like, I met someone that came in from Ukraine, and he was a student, and he was there not because he worked in Bitcoin, not because he didn't have a job, but he did trading as his side hobby. And he's like, yeah, I'm just here because I like to travel. And I also like crypto. So I was like, why not travel to attend this Bitcoin conference? And I was like, interesting. So I was like, are you into Bitcoin? He's like, no. And I was like, oh, that's so odd. That's so odd. But I mean, it was overall a great experience, and I just had the best time. I got to put names to some faces that I had seen, and it was really really cool. I got to go and like ask a bunch of people if they would like be down to film a little like clip because I was trying to vlog the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I was asking pretty much everyone that I was talking to, and I faced so many people just saying no, they didn't want to, or no, they didn't have time. And I'm someone that like doesn't do well with with rejection, right? Because like that's terrifying. But like hearing no that many times, I think I like got over that fear as well. And I'm like, okay, it's fine, it's fine. Like it's not something that's like ever that you should be taking personal. But yeah, I mean, overall, like I just loved it, and I'll definitely, be looking to come to more Bitcoin conferences in 2026.
No, that's awesome. I have yet to go to a Bitcoin conference, so I really want to go to. But definitely don't take it to heart. A lot of Bitcoiners don't even like to show their face in public, so to be filmed to put on YouTube, a lot of Bitcoiners are going to say no to that. So yeah, don't take that hard. That's pretty common.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I wouldn't worry about that. But do you want to tell everyone, how to find you on the internet, your YouTube channel, things like that?
Yeah, so I am on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Orange Peel Pod. And then my YouTube channel is just Nicki Sharma, or if you Googled Orange Peel Pod, that would come up as well. So yeah, hoping to see some of you guys on my channel.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nikki. I love these conversations. This is why I do, I love doing this. So thank you so much. I think you have a bright future. And thank you guys for listening to the Bitcoin broadcast. If you can, please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. Go check out Nikki at the Orange Peel Pod. She has a great channel as well. So thank you guys so much. All right. Peace, Nikki.
Thank you.